I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. Get ready to journey with us down the highway to a high strangeness. Get ready for the road less traveled. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your humble host, Mr. Dennis Carroll. I want to welcome everyone out there in podcast land to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. And here is the co host, Mr. Gerald Fountain.
Hi.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you doing this evening?
Doing well.
Good. Yeah, you ready to go take another trip down the road less traveled?
I am. I am ready to go.
Well, let's see who else is going with us here. I'm looking at Crystal Carroll. Hello, Crystal Carroll. Cleveland. Good to have you here, dear. I think I know that girl from somewhere. And we've got Midwest Night Watchers. I don't know who that could be.
Yeah, some lurker.
Yeah. And then we've got Urso and Shiro. That's somebody else that sounds familiar to me.
Yeah.
And let's see. We've got Gemini Moon. Kind of like we got one that's Wizard Moon. Now we got Gemini Moon. Okay, I like that. That's neat. We got some moons in here. And Demaria and let's see. Hello, Demaria. Hello, Kilroy. All right. And Dawn Morris. Hello, Dawn. And there's Wizard Moon. Hello, Wizard Moon. And let's see who else we got so far. That's who we got in the house tonight. So we're gonna have a lot of people traveling with us down the road. Let's travel. How you got some stuff you want to talk about, Gerald, before we commence on our journey? Some shows you got coming up, or some announcements you want to make, or whatever?
Not really. I mean, we're still up in the air about next week's show. We might invite a special guest, or I don't know. We might skip a week. I don't know what we're doing yet. So we don't really have anything coming up right in the near future, but we have other guests scheduled all the way into December.
All right. And of course, we're going to talk about your store. Yes, he's got a store. Okay. You got some heavy traffic on that store?
Yeah, we're getting some hits on it. People are finding it. I have it posted in our Facebook group and in our community page on our YouTube channel and stuff. And we mention it once in a while. We haven't really pushed it because we're still changing stuff in it. So, we don't want people to necessarily go there and be disappointed and say, oh, I wish I would have known you had that. But I mean, the store's changing. So we're just going to add a few more items to it. Then it'll be set, the inventory. So, but you can go there anytime you want on mindwareapparels.com and check it out. We're under the pull down menu under Midwest Night Watchers. And we got Jane stuff there. We got the Night Owl Lounge stuff there. And of course, Midwest Night Watchers.
Well, there you go, buy some swag and become an official Midwest Night Watcher, too. Yeah.
Yep.
You got some good stuff in there because I browsed it. You got some really nice stuff. Hello,
yeah, we got a little bit of everything, sweatshirts, t-shirts, hats, drinking glasses, stuff like that. So
before the show's over, we'll try to put that link up to the store there, and that will help all of you good people out there maybe to help support Midwest Night Watchers and get some swag, maybe. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, we appreciate it very much.
All right, I'm just checking out the chat. And so what's on tab tonight? You want to introduce we're going down the road less traveled tonight.
Yeah, I thought we would touch on mound builders, early civilizations, and here in our area we got quite a few of them, and all over the country, and as you said earlier, all over the world. There's actually mounds and early civilizations, but for me personally, I'm going to stick in the central Mississippi Valley area, but we'll talk about other things across the U.S. and anywhere it leads us.
Yes, that's true. They are everywhere, all over the world, but there are a lot of them are in, of course, what's called the New World. That's the Americas, the North and South America, and Central America. The whole continent is covered with these mounds. And of course, you have a lot of them in Scotland and Ireland. You have some mounds in Ireland. You have them in Wales and in England. It's an interesting thing, Gerald. A lot of people don't realize that the Appalachian Mountains were once part of a mountain range that is in Scotland, by the way. It was all part of one big giant mountain range before the continent shifted. But here's the thing that's always interested me about mounds. Two things really, and I'll split it up for you. One thing is they have a very mystical connection to them. A lot of stories, the fairies, and all these other things, the fae, are supposed to be connected to these mounds, which are also called sometimes fairy forts. That's interesting. That interests me a lot. And then the other connection is that nobody knows really who truly built most of these mounds. It's still a big, big mystery, isn't that right?
That's right. I mean, you can read in some of the old history books and they tell you that they discovered these already existing mounds or buildings, or whether you want to talk about Tartaria or any of that stuff, that the ancient civilizations, they discovered them as they populated the area. They were already in existence, so they just repurposed them for their communities and civilization.
Well, that goes, Gerald, along with my theory about Tartaria as being some of the remnant of Atlantis. I think that this is where a lot of that started. And of course, these may be the very fairy folk that they talk about. I think this was a race of people back in ancient times who were very highly intelligent, who had a greater grasp on technology than the cultures around them. They built buildings, they did things that nobody else was doing, and that put other races in awe of them.
Right.
They were scared of them. They made them like magical beings in that respect. And I think that their actual origin, though, may be somewhere like Atlantis or something like that. I've often thought that.
Yeah, if also you talk about Atlantis and you go with the continent of Mu at the same time. It supposedly they had a war, and that's how Atlantis sunk, and that's how Mu disappeared. And supposedly both of those civilizations spread out, and that's how they populated the world. So that's a whole nother subject.
Well, also the description of Atlantis, the ancient description of that city, was that it was built in concentric circles around it. Or what you might say were like moats, but very much like some of the mounds that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I have to wonder if there isn't a connection with the mound cultures and Atlantis, because the very center part of Atlantis was like a mound. And like this was the center of the city set upon, but you had these concentric circles around. I think there were 7 of them. I'm not sure, something like that. These circles that went around the actual city of Atlantis to protect it, and as a barrier from the sea, and etc. So there may be a connection to the mound builders and that. That's interesting take on that as well.
Right. And the thing that most people might not realize, that if you read the story from Homer and and the other scholars that they don't actually say that Atlantis submerged. They just say it disappeared. So it could have dried up, and that leads you to the Eye of Africa as being the closest example of what Atlantis might have looked like.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Now take a look at that. That is an interesting photo of a mound. Now I think do you know, Gerald, where this is at? By the way,
This is
where?
actually almost 3 hours south of us. It's in Illinois, almost into St. Louis, Missouri. It's Cahokia Mounds down in what they call Little Egypt. So that's another whole story about a civilization that there's this. I mean, you go in the Grand Canyon and all the way through, and you can find little bits and pieces that it makes you wonder if there was an Egyptian culture. But this is actually in Little Egypt, the region they call in southern Illinois, and that's Cahokia.
Wasn't there an indigenous city somewhere in Illinois or close to Illinois that actually was the largest city, one of the largest cities in the world? I think it was even dwarfed London at that time. Do you remember that?
Cahokia is actually the largest that we've had in North America, if not the world at the time, but definitely in North America. At one time, it had 40,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And this mound was in the center.
That was bigger than London, I think, at the time. Actually, and London was one of the largest cities in the world, by the way.
So this mound that survives, the big mound there, Monk's Mound is what they call it. And it had the main, if you want to call it a palace or the greeting place or whatever, that was the main central area. Then all the little mounds and houses and community, and it spread out all through Illinois. And it was a huge area. I mean, just this area itself right now is 2,000 acres, but at the time it was almost 4,000 acres when the civilization.
Big. That's very big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had 40,000 people in that area around that mound, connected to that tribe or whoever made this.
And Cheryl, they didn't live in teepees. They actually had houses.
Yes.
They had built houses like house structures. They were not nomadic peoples like the Plains Indians were. These people had a city. They had an agriculture. They had a husbandry. That means that they raised some types of animals to use. They were very smart people. Like I said, they were a city. They were not transient. They weren't all in one place. So by doing that very lifestyle, that would increase their knowledge on things, make them a smarter kind of people in that respect, because they had more time. Instead of hunting and gathering, they had more time to build and work on their technology and everything. So that freed them up to be more resilient in how they did, how they acquire their lifestyles. That's very interesting to think about.
Yep.
Nomadic peoples are spending a lot of time following, animals to prey upon, or following certain wildlife that they had to go. And they spent a lot of time putting up and taking down their dwellings and all that. They didn't have as much time as some other type cultures did,
Yep. Riley in chat's asking where this is. He must have came in just a little late. That's in that mound is in southern Illinois. It's called Cahokia Mounds, and it's just above St. Louis into Illinois.
Now, what we got here, is this something like a totem pole or something?
This is literally 15 to 20 minutes south of us, heading towards Cahokia on that general route. This is a little community called Hopewell, which is also another
I've heard
thriving Native American civilization, and this is their tribute to them and what they named their little community after, and that's the chief or the Indian that they made this little community after.
So that's sort of a signpost for them there.
Yes. And they have that quite a bit around here.
Yeah, we're looking at
Illinois. I mean, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is Dixon Mounds. I believe that's the right picture for it, which is east of us.
Oh, okay. Well, you got a lot of mounds. You've got a lot of mounds around you.
Oh, I have a map. I believe I shared with you, or I can share it later as we're going. Illinois is just riddled as you go into Illinois and Missouri and Indiana, and I mean, there's just all kinds of mounds scattered across, and people have made maps where they've located them, and not that they're all on there, but a majority of them. And so that's Monk's Mound. That goes with Cahokia. That's the little green.
I think that shows some maps there a little bit on that.
Yeah, so if you can, it's hard to see in this small picture, but the first picture on that placard or that billboard shows Monk's Mound, the picture that we looked, that great big mound, and you can see the little houses and huts that they had all around it. Now this is up by Chicago, so that's like 3 hours northeast of us, and they have a lizard mound, an effigy.
I'm looking for that map, but I don't see it.
Well, right down at the bottom, the yellow highlighted, that's right out of Chicago. Almost in Chicago, the city is a lizard mound.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, Chicago itself was a big indigenous area. It is named by the indigenous peoples. That's where the name Chicago comes from.
Yeah, there was a Chicago tribe. And of course, like everything else, you know, they settled there first or had the area, and then settlers took over.
This kind of shows the I can't read that. What is that? The Morris Mound?
That's Monk's Mound. That's from Cahokia.
Okay. That's another mound. Now, where's that located at?
That's the one we showed at the very beginning, the great big green mound in southern Illinois. That's called Monk's Mound.
Oh, that's a big green.
They call it Cahokia Mounds. This is the general term, but the actual mound itself is Monk's Mound.
Well, that's big. Look at that. Would you
believe that or not? That is the mound that was there where St. Louis is located. And they actually tore that down without excavating it or anything. They just got rid of it to build St. Louis and populate St. Louis, Missouri. And that's called the Big Mound.
I want to say something here. When you start moving that much earth without heavy machinery, you're talking about some very hard manual labor here, buddy.
Right. So when St. Louis was being developed, they would just take chunks of it, whether it was rock or stones that they put in there. There was supposedly like a small temple or pyramid in it. And that's the same one. That's the same mound. And it was huger than that. I mean, it was almost the size of Cahokia. But they tore it down and used it throughout the city for foundations and roads and fill in areas that were low, and so they destroyed that mound.
That's a shame that they tore that down.
But you know, I have a list of cities that all had mounds, and they all tore them down or built on top of them to either make just like this for St. Louis. They used it in the landscape and everywhere, and I have a list of at least 20 major cities that had mounds that they tore down.
There's another mound. You can see a city not too far from it.
Well, that's an actual Caterpillar plant. That's Mossville, Illinois. That's not quite 30 minutes from us. And that is one of 11 mounds that's still left. So there's only like 2 or 3 mounds that they didn't disturb. But when they built the plant and they built the highway going through from Peoria to up to Interstate 80, if everybody knows where Interstate 80 is. So that's the only one they didn't excavate or get rid of.
It's just amazing to me, Gerald. I mean, that you could build something like this without heavy machinery and stuff like that. I mean, without bulldozers and such. It's amazing what ancient mankind could do when it took a notion to do something. They didn't let the dynamics of it stop them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But whoever built these, and like I said, to this day, this is a great mystery of who really actually built these things. It was not the indigenous peoples, a lot of them that were around in what we would call the 17th and 18th and 16th centuries. This goes way, way, way back. Matter of fact, a lot of you know me, I like archaeology, and a lot of archaeologists speculate that there was another band of some people here before the indigenous peoples came to this country.
Right.
And they are the ones who truly built these mounds and forts and laid some of these stone walls that you hear about and some of these other places, that they were the true builders of these things. And we do not know to this day who these people were. But like I said, that might tie into the remnant of Atlantis or something, you never know.
Yep. So this is in between us, or maybe 15 minutes north of Peoria, Illinois. And there was 11 mounds originally. That's another smaller view of it from a different angle. That's probably 10 feet tall. So it's a small mound, but it's pretty wide, pretty long. But there was 11 of them. So we don't know how big the biggest one was when they tore it up. At least I don't know. I mean, so there might be records of it somewhere. But they excavated one mound, and they found a family and remnants of skeletons and artifacts, and that is on display at Dixon Mounds. That other sign that we showed earlier, that was Dixon Mounds, that had the spider on the logo.
Well, now you're kind of touching upon the superstitious, the mystical thing connection with a lot of these mounds. And I apologize for that being such a small picture, but I had to take a screenshot. It wouldn't let me keep the original. I had to do a screenshot on that. But you're touching on the mystical part now, Gerald, because there's a lot of folk tales and stuff like that connected with these mounds. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the broadcast, you had fairy mounds, or they're called fairy forts. And a lot of they thought that a lot of the fairylands and stuff were underneath these mounds. There's a big mystical connection. As a matter of fact, J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of the Lord of the Rings, actually invented something very similar to that there's supposed to be spirits around these mounds, haunting spirits, and they're supposed to be very ancient spirits of magic. He called them, he had a name for them, Barrowites. Now, a barrow is what we're talking about today. That's the British name for mounds. They call them barrows. And Barrowites are supposed to be the spirits that haunt, the spirits of ancient peoples and warriors that haunt these mounds, supposedly. And you're supposed to, here's the main superstition of it. You're not supposed to even take a single stone from these mounds. Right. You're not supposed to take anything from them. You're supposed to reverence these mounds. And if you show any kind of disrespect, then you have a problem with the spirits of the barrows and the mounds. That's very interesting. But a lot of cultures believe that. And a lot of their belief systems are geared towards that. But now I can tell you some freaky stories that people have had concerning some of these mounds. There was like a very famous movie made on one of these, and I think the name of it was called The New Daughter. The New Daughter.
Right.
And what it was, and I think it had, what's his name? I can't think of his name. And this guy, I can't think of his name. Anyway, it's a very good movie. If any of you ever catch it, it's very good. But the whole catalyst of the movie was that they moved to a place, an old plantation in South Carolina, and there was a mound on this plantation. And the daughter became fixated with it. And what it was, the spirits of the mound were calling her and sort of possessing her. You need to watch this movie. It's real neat. But I thought it was very interesting because the whole movie revolved around this mound, you know. And
Right.
they are considered to be dark, mystical places that you need to really respect.
Now, Riley was asking, whether these mounds are sacred. Well, yeah, to the people that were there at the time, they were sacred and they should still be sacred ground. But, as we settled the area and whatever, they didn't really necessarily go by that. They did whatever they needed to do for progress. But now there's 3 mounds here right outside our town that they still exist, but they're small. There was 11 of them originally, but these are actually this mound, which is the biggest of the 3, and then there's 2 smaller mounds, and now you can't excavate them or whatever without permits and going through all the heritage and archaeology and all that. So it's kind of sacred now, but it's more of a legality than anything.
That kind of ties into the way indigenous people looked upon their burial sites and stuff as very sacred land, that was protected by magic.
Right.
And we would unfortunately call it cursed, and it was kind of cursed in a way that nobody would mess with it or disrespect it. You weren't really even allowed to cross the boundaries of this sacred land.
Right. You weren't even supposed to walk through them or nothing.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Let's see what else we got here. I think it's another mound here with the car. It shows you the size of it with the car next to it.
Yeah, I think that's what you just had up, that small picture. I think this is exactly the same picture. So you can kind of tell how big that one is. And that's the biggest of the 3 that still exist. But supposedly of the 11 mounds, there was one bigger than this, but it got obviously tore down and moved. And the one mound that they did excavate, my dad told me about this when I was a kid, that they actually took the time and excavated it to find what was in it. And those remnants of the skeletons and artifacts, like I said earlier, went to Dixon Mound. So they are on display. So they kind of did the right thing, but they didn't really, as far as the rest of the mounds, they just kind of plowed through them and built the highway and the plant. That's one of the other smaller mounds.
Mm-hmm. In the trees have grown up in it.
Yep, and it's right next to the highway and right on where the plant is. It's on their grounds or state grounds, right next to it.
Yeah. It may be sort of like the rest area in the middle. Oh, what do you call it? The media. It might be the media. There may be a highway on the other side.
No, I mean, it's right down the road from us. We go down this road all the time. We look at these mounds, weekly or monthly. But where that truck is, there's a 2-lane highway. It's Route 29 in Illinois.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So that mound is actually on the side of the road. All those mountains, there's 3 of them.
Now this is very interesting. We've talked about the NASCAR, lines and stuff. This is sort of ties into that. This is a figure on the side of a hill, is it not?
Yeah, this is an effigy. It's up in Wisconsin. It's one of the last ones that's left. As you can see, that's a road going through its legs. So they kind of highlighted it so you can tell where it used to be. So, but the upper body is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an effigy, and it's actually kind of a mountain, kind of like what we just showed in those last pictures. So it is a raised figure. So it's not like the Nazca necessarily. That's kind of flat in this outline. This actually has a little 3D texture to it.
There's some big ears on that thing, and then it's not like bad ears on it. That is
So that's
wild.
supposed to be that's supposed to be the effigy of man, is what they called it. And up in Wisconsin, there's like 5 of these. There's a rabbit, there's a fox, there's a bird. So that's how big it is.
There's a
If you
long
can,
shot of it. I think you see some cultivated fields next to it there.
yep.
That's
So you can
interesting.
tell how big that is.
That's where I would like to go and study that. That is very interesting. Of course, now you cannot. Here's the thing about it, Gerald. You don't know what you're looking at on the ground. You got to be up in the air to see this thing, you know? Or from on top of another mountain or something like that.
Right.
To see it, actually appreciate it. You know what I'm saying?
So that's just across the border into Wisconsin from Illinois, where we are.
And let's see what we got here.
So that's the bird effigy, and that goes along with the man. They have a bird, they have a fox, a rabbit. There's the monument for the big picture of the man you just showed.
Oh, that's the one for the man we just looked at, I think.
Yep. And that plaque, was dedicated in 1905.
I was looking to see if there's a bird, a thing on the bird effigy, but I don't. Here's a kind of a drawing of it, I think.
Yep, that's the bird. I don't know if I actually sent you the picture of the bird mound or not, but that's the monument.
There it is, right there. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And I think this is another shot of it. No, what is that?
No, that's the guardian of the Badlands, and that's actually a mountain range up in Canada. That's kind of like a mound, but everybody says it looks like an Indian. So they named him the guardian of the Badlands.
That's very interesting. Let me go back to the bird mound just a minute. That is fascinating stuff out there. Look how big that thing is compared to the people standing next to it.
So as far as mounds, this one isn't really raised that much, but the head and the body and stuff is raised just a little bit compared to the lines. They outlined it obviously like the Nazca.
That's another shot of the museum thing that we did.
Yeah, that's the Dixon Mounds monument that they put up.
That's fascinating stuff. Like I said, ancient man, he did not let things stand in his way. They get the job done, you know what I'm saying? No matter what they decided to do. But looking at stuff like this, Gerald, I have to speculate the fact that I think a lot of this might have been driven by religion, certain beliefs that they had to do these things, to venerate their gods or whatever the situation. Don't you think so? Don't you think it was, it wasn't, I think it was a labor of love in many aspects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, whether it was a god that they had stories of or they honored, or I don't know, because it's kind of weird that some of the effigies that we were talking about in Wisconsin or the rabbit are like local animals, the bird, the rabbit, the fox. But then you have the man that doesn't really look anything like what we would think modern man would look like.
Yeah, I agree. I think they were just putting down what they were associated with, and then that's the records they had of the things. Well, look, those things were very important to them to survive, like rabbits, birds that they probably eat or whatever the situation. That was their food, that was part of their survival, part of their culture. Absolutely. And that would be one thing you would commemorate, and that would probably be tied into your religious beliefs as well. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But I think, ancient man in certain aspects like this was driven by his belief system. He was wanting to appease the gods or to make a record of what was going on with him. You see this happening, and I have studied over the years a lot of cave drawings. Fascinating stuff, isn't it? I'm talking about. It's very interesting. And they would, most of the time when you see, here's the thing about it, okay? Most of the time when you see a cave drawing or etching like that on the side of a hill or whatever the situation, they are actually drawing true to life what they see. It's not real fanciful. You know what I'm saying? It is very true to life. I've seen like pictures of buffalo and all that. That goes back thousands of years. The buffalo still look the same. I mean, they were very accurate with their records on some of this stuff. Don't you agree?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, they try to carbon date stuff, modern man does, but carbon dating isn't exactly foolproof or exact. I mean, because that carbon gets added and taken away depending on what happens in our environment.
Yeah. Don
But if
Morris says
you
that could be the Thunderbird. It may be a depiction of the Thunderbird. It might be. That was a very well-known deity in the indigenous cultures.
well,
One of my favorites.
right here where all the mounds, and we're kind of in this where we live, we're kind of in the center of all these mounds from Wisconsin, Chicago to St. Louis to Southern Illinois. And we have in our area, we have Lake Thunderbird. We have Hopewell Estates, which Hopewell was an indigenous tribe that lived in the area. Our community itself, our school system, and our whole community is actually considered a Senatchewine, and we took that from the Potawatomi tribe, which Chief Senatchewine was the leader in our area, and his brother Gomu, I believe, it was in the Peoria, Illinois area, and he was the leader of all the tribes of the Potawatomi for this Illinois and Missouri Valley. So you had two brothers that ruled within 50 miles of each other.
Ah, that's interesting. John Fortman says we certainly have large structures today to venerate our gods. Absolutely, that's the way mankind has always worked. Definitely, in many separate cultures that had no connection with each other, you find these things happening. It's very interesting.
Right. So I have a couple pictures that I have on my computer that I can share. I don't know if you went through all the pictures I sent you or.
Yeah, I went through all the ones that I downloaded. I think there were 19 of them altogether.
Oh, okay. I didn't necessarily see all of them.
You might be able to put them on your, try to put them on yourself, see if it works.
Well, here I got a couple that I'll share that I know I have for sure. Let me see.
I don't know if I can download them.
No, I'll bring them up
live
on screen from my side.
I've tried that before. John Fulton says the two brothers are reminiscent of Romulus and Remus, the twins who found in Rome. Yeah, they were suckled by a she-wolf, supposedly. And they found that cave actually that they said that supposedly happened in, and archaeologists have found that cave, by the way. But you will see a depiction of that she-wolf with the two twins in Rome. I think it's in Athens, Georgia, I think. There's a statue over there. There you go. You got your picture up here. What do we got?
Yeah, so this is Chief Senatchewine's gravesite, which is the leader that was in our area, which our school system and our whole community or township is named after. And that is the 5th generation grandson and his family came to our area to visit. So this is literally 7 miles from our house where this gravesite is for Chief Senatchewine.
Right in the neighborhood.
Yep. And I think I have a closer view of let me see. So you can see the plaque better, maybe. See if I can get it up here. So that's actually the plaque itself.
Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, you can zoom in on it. Good. All right.
Here, I'll go out a little bit.
It's called Seneca wine. Seneca wine.
Sinatra wine.
Sinatra wine. Okay, I got
And
you.
he was part of the Potawatomi Indian. He was a chief for our area. Like I said, his brother was up down south, kind of where a little bit. It's like maybe 40 or 50 miles where he was at, and that he has his grave site there. The brother that was leader of the tribe, and this was the chief. Sinatchwine was for our area.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's like 7 miles, 7 or 8 miles from where we live now. So
you got a lot of history around you there, Drew.
Let me see if I can find. I have a interactive map on Google that shows
a map.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it real quick and I'll bring it up. That shows all the mounds.
I don't know. StreamYard sometimes refuses pictures. If it's not the right resolution or something, it's very
right.
It's very finicky that way.
Can you see that?
There we go. Maybe you zoom in on that a little bit. There we go. Boy, I tell you, the country is covered with them.
So if I go back out, this is showing basically
very
from
heavily in
Illinois, Iowa, all the way down south to Florida. Indiana has tons of them, and you can go to Google.
A lot of these tribes, Jero, were situated around the Great Lakes. Is that right?
Well, they're more populated, as you can see from this map, down south, southern, but Indiana and Ohio has a ton of them. Mm-hmm. But we have a lot that's uncharted in Illinois itself that aren't on this map.
That's what I say. That's where there was a heavier population of people. So you definitely were going to have more mounds. You know what I'm saying?
So they're I mean, you can go to Google Maps and you can find this map and check out all these individual sites, and
very interactive.
There's just tons and tons of maps and showing what each tribe was and where they were from, and
that's fascinating too.
So there you go.
Yeah, good. We got a new wrinkle in our horn. We learned something tonight, huh? We can put pictures up. That's good.
Well, I'm sorry. The Mary wanted to see the ones in Florida, but
this is a very interesting subject because, like I said earlier, a lot is not known about the mound builders.
Right.
And like the ancient peoples, the indigenous peoples, talk about those mounds being here when they got here.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
The one in Florida, they are all over the country. You're going to usually have some around wherever there were large populations of indigenous peoples. And here's the thing about that, okay? The indigenous peoples venerated their trails and their encampments, whatever they may have been. They, I think, founded a lot of their places on on the ones that were already there. You know what I'm saying? They
Yep.
pass these down generation after generation. They use the same trails. They use the same areas. Why did they do that? Because that was where other people had done it. You know, that's the way that worked.
So I put the link in the chat, and if you
Here's
if you click on that, it'll have the link to the Google Maps. That's the only way I could find it. But I mean, even Google Earth has one that does worldwide, I believe, of all the mounds and indigenous villages and communities. And I mean, you can just search for hours and hours and see the pictures and the mounds and stuff. And that's where I got most of mine from, going down rabbit holes.
And you can do all that mound hunting from your chair.
Yep. But fortunate for us, I mean, like I said, we go right by the mounds there, the little small mounds that we showed you. We travel by it quite a bit. And my dad told me the story of it when I was little. And, you know, a couple hours we can be in Wisconsin at Effigy Mounds. 2 hours we can be over at Dixon Mounds, where they have a big village, a big mound that they actually excavated, and they put an actual building over top of it, so you can go in and tour it. And they have all the bones, you know, where they naturally laid. They didn't move them. They just excavate it, and you can walk around and actually see the artifacts and burial sites. And there is a lot. I mean, I thought I sent you the pictures, but they must not have came through or something. But you can actually go, just look up Dixon Mounds in Illinois, Dixon, Illinois, just like Cahokia, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, we have up going towards Chicago, you know, that Lizard Mound, and we also have Starved Rock, which has a big story about the indigenous and Native American people for that area.
Well, if you go mound hunting, watch out for those barrow-wights. Huh?
Well, like I said, I have a whole list of mounds that I've been researching, and a lot of them don't exist anymore. Like I said, that big mound in St. Louis, they tore it down to make room for progress, and they used the material inside building the foundations for the roads and the buildings and all over, and so it no longer exists. And they didn't save any of the artifacts or anything. They just covered it all up. There's a few cities that actually just plowed it all under and buried it, and just laid the city foundation and roads right on top of it. They didn't move it, didn't do anything with it.
And there is a wealth of archaeological data on a lot of this stuff, you know. Luckily, there is that, because, like you say, a lot of these got torn down. They got used. They got whatever, you know, was done to them. And luckily, we have a record of them. Or we wouldn't know, you know, a lot of this stuff. And that's a shame, really, that they would destroy such, you know, ancient stuff like that. That's really bad. But that happens. That's the way it goes.
So
Progress.
someday,
nothing stands in the way of progress.
So someday, if we have a reset or we disappear for whatever reason, maybe the next civilization will tear up those roads or building, and they'll find these indigenous people, or, you know, the first settlers, and say, "Hey, what is this? What's this doing underneath this building? What's underneath this road? What's going on here?" They'll be just like us, looking back at our prehistory.
I don't know. We might be pretty hard to figure out, Gerald.
Wait, could you see?
They might get a lot wrong on that one. Absolutely.
Did you see like a little town that has all these churches and buildings, you know, and they see the foundations of them, they start getting rid of them, and all of a sudden they get all this prehistoric fossils and bones and stuff. It's like, what's going on here? What's up with this civilization? What are they doing?
We just can't figure them people out. They was weird people. You know? That's what they'll say about us, probably. John Fortman says there's a music channel called the, let me see, I can do my glasses on here, excuse me a minute. Called the Deep and Fundus, and does an amazing rendition of the Barrow-wights chant. I might have to check that out. Watch out for those Barrow-wights.
That's right.
Defundus. Autocorrect. Sorry about that. Okay, I got you. I'll have to check that out. Tolkien has a lot of fans. Absolutely. I remember the first time I met Tolkien, I was about 15 years old, and it was a reading assignment from school, and it turned out to be very interesting. It wasn't one of those boring assignments. That man was a genius. Oh, a genius, especially in languages. He invented the whole elf language and all these weird, wild names that he put in there. He was a genius when it comes to that kind of stuff. No, I didn't meet him. I met him through his book, unfortunately. I would love to have met him in person.
That's right.
Absolutely. But I met him through his book.
That's the great thing about doing research and reading books, that you can live through the author.
Yeah, that is a connection, and I've said this many times before. That includes with Edgar Allan Poe and Shakespeare and all the rest of them. When you get deep into their work, they talk to you, they speak to you. There is a connection. That is real neat because you're connecting with people long dead, long gone, and yet there's still a connection going on there. That's the neat part of it all,
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of old history books that I find copies of them online. I have certain amount of a couple history books up in my collection of books that have very interesting tales compared to what we hear today. And then you read those books like, well, they don't quite match up to what you're saying these days.
Yep. I'm going to be dropping a very interesting science fiction type stories, scary stories by candlelight very soon. So may all of you be watching for that. That may tie into exactly all the stuff we've been talking tonight. Okay. So I'm gonna be dropping that soon. So be watching for it. It is a science fiction story with a very interesting twist at the end. That's all I'm gonna tell you. So be watching for it. But anyway, it ties into what we've been talking about tonight. I love everything Tolkien wrote. He was definitely a genius. Absolutely Wizard Moon. The man was, he really, even, I'll say this, even as good as she was, Rowling pales in comparison to Tolkien. Absolutely. She couldn't
Right.
hold a candle to that. Although she was very good at creating her own world with Harry Potter and all that stuff. Very good at that. But she couldn't match Tolkien, I don't think.
I'm getting ready. I'm trying to find another picture that I like that ties right into the subject, and I'm going to try to bring it up. I got to transfer it to the computer I'm on.
All right.
So just give me a second, and I'll be right with you.
That's fine. I'm just checking out the comments here.
Yeah, we had a lot of good people in chat tonight asking great questions and seem very interested in the subject. And like I said, if you just do a little research and just start in your area and just type in Google, Indian mounds or pre-civilization, you'll start finding maps and images that were in your area even.
Yeah. You need to go and if you do have some of these places near you, you need to pay a visit to them in person and check them out. It'd be very interesting stuff to get interested. I've done that with a lot of historical sites around me. I've not only investigated them paranormally wise, but I just enjoy looking at them. Okay, because they are parts of history. And like there's not nearby where I live, and not that far away. Probably it might be like 10 minutes away. There's a place called the Old Stone Church, and that place has been there since the 1600s. Okay, that's how old this place. and I'll talk about the ghost stories surrounding it and all that. But it is where there are a couple of Revolutionary War generals buried there. There's an Indian chief buried there. There's a witch buried there too, by the way.
Oh
So there's a
my.
lot of history in that, and and I have actually, Gerald, done classes in that churchyard. Okay, I've
Wow.
actually done paranormal classes out there, but it is a fascinating place. I love the old historical areas. The Cryptid Huntress has arrived. Hello, dear. Good to have you here. And
Yeah,
we
I
are
just
doing mounds tonight. You might want to go back and check this out. By the way, you might, Cryptid Hunters, you might want to check the special edition of Hunting the Shadows I did last night. It ties in with some stuff you've been doing. You might want to check it out. It's about clones, okay? It's an interesting case I've got going on right now having to do with clones. So check it out if you get a chance. But we've
all
been
right.
doing mounds tonight.
I got
We've been
the
mounding.
I got
I
the
got a new
picture up.
word. I got a new phrase for that. Mounding. Okay. We've
So I
gone
got the
mounding.
picture ready to go if you're ready.
Yep. We've
So
gone
this
mounding.
so this is from
Oh yeah, here.
this is from an old history book. I don't know if I can make it bigger on this screen. Zoom in. But this is from a U.S. history book in the early 1900s, and it says the mounds, ruined cities, pottery, and other remains since found in all parts of the land concerning which the Indians could furnish no information or which showed the state of the civilization far in advance of theirs were proof that a great people had existed in a remote past who had flourished and disappeared without leaving any traces whereby they could be accounted for or identified. So the indigenous people didn't even know where these things came from, and they took over existing buildings, including the mounds, ruined cities, pottery left behind. So a lot of the indigenous people didn't even make their own pottery or tools. They just used what they found. And this is in an old 1900 U.S. history book that used to be on the shelves everywhere.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So look at those old books if you can find them.
Yeah, that says a lot of. You got a lot of the libraries at your fingertips nowadays. You can go through a lot of the books you used to couldn't. And like I said, back in the old days, you had to sit in the reference room and read those books. You couldn't take them home, But now you can. Now you got them at home,
Yeah.
and you need to take advantage of them. Definitely.
I mean, that book you can still buy. Collectors still sell them. You can find them once in a while, but they're like the Library of Congress. A lot of these books are on PDF files that you can find or read and whatever. And that's where that came from. And then I highlighted that section.
I don't know. You're all. I'm still looking for the Book of Presidents. Okay.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one to find.
That would be a good one to find, definitely. But I would love to play around the Library of Congress too. And there is such a place as the Library of Congress.
Yeah, I don't know if Jessica's still in chat or not, but I sent her that picture and some of the mound pictures and stuff. So maybe she'll want to do a mound show someday.
Yeah, mounds, like I say, there's an interesting connection to mounds. And here's another thing about a connection to mounds. There's supposed to be strange creatures associated with these mound areas. There's supposed to be, I don't know if they're like portals and all that, but strange creatures are associated with these things. Creature attacks supposedly around mounds and stuff like that. So you do have that tie-in. You have a cryptozoological type tie-in with it.
This would be a whole nother show, but there's actually the story of Bigfoot wars of 1855. There was
yeah.
the Bigfoots against the Indians, and the Indians that the warriors that actually went against these Bigfoot were actually giants. They were 7 to 8 tall, 300 and plus pounds.
That was the Red Earth Giants in the Lovelock Cave that they supposedly had a war with too. That's interesting. And and guess what? There's mounds around there. So there you go. And that's the interesting thing. That there is another theory that a lot of these mounds, Gerald, lie upon ley lines.
Right.
Throughout the world. And it is an interesting fact, and I have studied ley lines for many years. It is an interesting fact that a lot of sacred areas, and this includes old churches, mounds, stone rings, and things like that, lay on ley lines. That's interesting. Why, of all places they could be built, why they built over some of these ley lines like that? Because, of course, these are supposed to be energy fields of the earth.
Right.
The ancient magnetic energy fields. And the ancients supposedly knew about a lot of it. I think there is a definite clue to some of this stuff that they knew more than we think they knew. They know.
Right.
You know what I mean? They were a lot smarter than we give them credit for in many aspects.
Now, as a magnetic field is changing because the Earth's pole position is moving, my theory is that once we fully move to the location, we might be in the same access as when these mounds and cathedrals and temples were at the beginning. So maybe our magnetic field, you know, we've experienced 6 or 7 times the northern lights in the states all the way to the lower states in the U.S., North America, and we normally get them. So maybe as this magnetic field's moving, maybe all these cathedrals and the churches and temples and I don't know what I want to say, but
a lot of
maybe they'll come to life. Maybe the energy will start flowing through the ley lines into the temples, and you'll see the great big beams of energy coming into the temples and cathedrals. And, the pyramids. I was trying to think of the pyramids in Egypt. They're supposedly to harness power also. So one of these days, as the magnetic field changes and our pole shift happens, those things may come alive again.
And you also have a whole lot of paranormal activity happening along these lines on either side of these perimeters. There is, I think, a reason for that, definitely. I'm going to tell very soon about an incident I had on what I call the Island of the Dead. And it had to do with draining batteries. I'm not going to get into that tonight. But I think a lot of this paranormal stuff needs energy, whether it be earth energy or whether it be man-made energy to manifest itself and to do things it needs to do, or just to fuel it, in other words. And I think they realize that these things know where to find this fuel at when they need it sometimes. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
John Fulton says that's why solar flares hit harder. We're getting way more radiation than space weather impossible. I'm going to tell you this. Some of the most interesting investigations I've done were on stormy nights when there was a lot of electricity and energy in the air. Things happen more so on those Dracula. I call it Dracula weather. Okay. Whenever you have that kind of weather, and you have investigations or some type of paranormal stuff going on, it will increase. And there's a reason for that, definitely.
Yeah, I mean it's been a wild year for us. Like I said, we've seen the northern lights probably 7 or 8 times this year alone. And normally we're lucky to have previous in our lifetime seen 1 or 2.
And I think too, with a lot of solar flares and a lot of this stuff going on, Gerald, that the veil is thin. It's thin about this. There may be certain areas and certain times when certain situations like this make the veil thinner. and things happen. You know what I'm saying? I believe there's a fluctuation on that, absolutely. And I think even the weather, solar flares can affect a lot of this stuff,
Right.
energy wise.
Unless we have
Everything.
a catastrophic solar flare. I mean, we go through cycles. We're in the high season for solar flares, but eventually that'll go back down. It'll slowly go back down over the years to back to normal. So our magnetic field will build back up. So I wouldn't be surprised though if like I said, some of these temples and cathedrals and the pyramids start acting funny. I mean, whether it happens in our lifetime, I don't know, but I think it will eventually.
Well, the pyramids supposedly had golden caps on them, by the way.
Right.
And gold is a what? Great conductor, when you think about it. But here's the interesting thing, Gerald, and I go with Einstein on this, definitely. Our universe is all about energy. No matter what form it takes and what it does, we are definitely looking at energy, frequency, and vibration along those lines. And I think a lot of things in this universe are driven by those laws, without a doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the legends and folklore and stuff, we have caretakers of the earth, and some might be considered the watchers, and there's the observers. There's all different terms for these different entities or whatever they are, and they're here to to be caretakers of the earth. And so they take care of the ley lines and stuff like that. So that might, if that becomes active, maybe they will too.
We never lose sight of the fact that we have electricity in us. We have energy in us.
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about just spiritual energy. I'm talking about we have an energy like electricity. We have certain chemicals that are doing things in us all the time. If you don't really realize that, you find out on a cold day when you walk across the carpet and touch somebody. Sometimes that'll happen. You have static electricity. That's inherent in us. Okay. And we need to understand we are energy in many different forms, not just one type of form,
Right.
And we are definitely vibrating along frequencies as well, because anything that exists in this universe, whatever it may be, has to vibrate. I'm talking about a living thing. Okay. It vibrates and it has its own frequency in which it does that.
Yep. And that's why we have the term, where my battery's running low, or I'm feeling low today. It's because of our energies. If we don't get the correct sleep and nutrition, then we deplete our resources, which is what produces our energy in our body. We have the electrical impulse.
Sometimes we need to recharge.
Yep, that's why you have to sleep at night, so you can recharge and build up your batteries. And we talk about that in terms of our human body as being batteries.
But I tell you something else too, Gerald. What's good for the soul is sometimes you need to get away from everything. You need to get away from everything that's distracting you or taking your time up and all this, or worrying you about or bothering you, whatever the situation is. You need to step away from that once in a while and recharge yourself spiritually.
Yep.
Because that has a lot to do with you physically. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that kind of touches on your favorite subject of vampires. You have energy vampires that suck the energy right out of you.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why, I said that the other night. We should be very careful about people who touch us. Certain people that we allow to touch us. That includes shaking hands and all that. I'm getting to the point where I don't even like to shake hands anymore. Okay, and I picked this up during the recent epidemic. But here's the thing about it: there is a transference of energy going on here, And
Right.
listen to the one I'm about to tell you. If you run into the wrong actor, they can transfer negative energy to you
Right.
by simply touching you, you know? And you got to really guard against something like that. You know, I want some positive energy. I don't want any
Right.
negative energy. But I'm just
Not
saying, you got people that will do that. And it's very much like these energy vampires that we talk about, you know?
right. Not only can they deplete your good energy, but they can also put a bad energy in you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
They can
look at
drain
the tale. Look at the tale in the Bible, you know, about Jesus, and the woman touched his hem, and he, in the Bible, it says he felt the energy leave. He could tell there
He
was a
knew
difference.
somebody touched him. Yeah, he
Right.
knew somebody touched him. Yeah. He said, "Who touched me?" You know? And here's what he said, something very interesting. He said, they said, "How do you know?" So we're in a big crowd. How do you know somebody just said, "Because virtue went out of me. Energy went out." Okay.
Right.
That's him talking about that, by the way. That's very interesting, you know. And that is a spiritual concept that a lot of people miss. I think without doubt. And like you said, they can not only transfer negative energy, they can drain your good energy. And they do it both at the same time.
Absolutely.
hmm So it's not a good idea going around touching people and letting people touch you, okay? Because you're invading their personal field. And whenever that happens, weird stuff can go on, okay? Whenever you get too close to someone, that's even not even touching. I'm talking about getting really close to somebody. You have to be careful. What do lovers do when they go to kiss and hug each other? They have to get close to do it. And that is a what? Transference of emotion going on.
Right.
Okay. That's a transfer of emotion. So things are getting transferred here, folks. A lot of different ways. You have sexual energy that gets transferred. You have spiritual energy that gets transferred. You have body energy that gets transferred, or what we call physical energy. That's getting transferred. You're getting a lot of transfer going on here. The closer you get, you don't even have to touch anybody.
Exactly.
So it's good to keep your personal space intact.
You know, we have people that can see your auras. Well, guess what that is? That's just like the northern lights. That's electromagnetic field that we have around our bodies. So
I have a Dyson goggles, and you can clearly see auras with them, you know. And certain people put off certain kinds of auras. And if you got something like a black aura, a dark looking kind of aura, usually those are people that have an illness or something going on, you know, that is actually, you know, negative in their situation, whether it be a physical illness or a mental illness or whatever the situation.
right.
You can pick it up. You see it in these auras around people, you know. That's interesting. And you know, like we used to. Do you remember? I know you're just going back for you, Gerald. Okay. Do you remember the mood rings?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
remember those? I
Absolutely.
I'd love to have one now. But anyway, we used to have those years ago, and they would actually change color, like your aura, when you had certain emotions going on or something. That
Yep.
was freaky.
Yep. Black,
Yeah.
the blue, the green, orange, red. They had all the whole bases covered. And they have the Orca. I think it's the Oracle ring now. That's kind of like a mood ring, but it's kind of a smart ring, and it'll go to your app and all this stuff on your phone. But it has the band around it that shows the colors, just like the old mood rings.
Yeah, there you go. That's freaky stuff. All right, yeah. But you know what? And I've often talked about this in demonology, and I'm not going to get in, go deep into that tonight. But in demonology, we recognize the fact that you can be attacked spiritually, emotionally, and your emotions. And a lot of people discount emotions, but your emotions are part of your makeup.
Right.
Like if you're watching a horror movie and they start with the spooky music, they putting you on the edge, you get on the edge of your seat, you know something's about to happen. They are manipulating you emotionally. Or if you listen to classical music, and I've known people cry at classical music because it would touch their emotions so much.
Right.
Or a spiritual song, or whatever the situation. These things are manipulating or changing or touching your emotions. That's part of you. That's very important that you remember to keep your emotions in check and be very careful with your emotions, because you can be manipulated. Because whatever your emotions do, it communicates it to what, Gerald? Your mind. Your
Well,
emotions are hooked directly to your mind, whether
right.
you realize that or not. Yeah.
Like I always say, we are a holy trinity. We have mind, body, and soul. So you have to be protective of all times. And that includes your health, like what we were talking about before. So if our batteries are running low and we get depressed or we get tired and run down, that's when we can become under physical attacks or demon attacks. But if we have our body charged up and protected, then that's when we're in good moods usually, and outgoing and good moods. And so
Well,
there you go.
that's where your positive comes in. The more positive emotions, the more positive outlook you have, the more of a bumper you have against this negativity that's trying to invade your system, whatever the situation may be. It's like a disease, like a virus. I won't say too much about that because we can get clocked for that. But anyway,
Right.
it is very much like that, an invasion of a viral agent.
Yep.
Uh, that
And
is
you
what.
mentioned it, the music and movies and
Yeah.
and music and stuff. I mean, that's why they invoke those low tones and that scary music, because they want to put you in fear. And fear is an emotion that brings you down and more acceptable to attacks.
And certain beats, certain rhythms, certain things can enhance your emotions to where you will feel hatred or violence or some negative things. They know this. They know that certain things do that. They bring that out in certain people. That's just the way it works. Be very careful of your emotions because they can be very easily manipulated. And once you manipulate the emotions, you manipulate the what? The person. That's just the way that goes. Well, this has been a fascinating show tonight. You got any final thoughts on the mounds, Gerald?
So wherever you live, Google, unless you already know the history of your area, Google mounds or pre-civilizations, whatever you can find, on online, and start going down those rabbit holes. Because just like us here in Illinois and Mississippi Valley, Missouri Valley, actually, but you can find mounds everywhere, and if you get a chance, travel to Cahokia and see the biggest mound in North America. But they're all over. You can find, just like we talked about the Nazca lines, you can find effigies, you can find the serpent mounds in Ohio. I mean, they're just everywhere. So get out there and travel and see what you can find.
Yep, absolutely. And like I say, get out. If you got some historical areas like that around you, make a trip there. Okay, check them out. You will enjoy it, and it will enlighten you and expand your horizons. Definitely. And I want to thank everybody who's been here tonight with us in the show. It's been a very, very interesting hour and a half almost coming up on it. And
Yep.
time flies when you're having fun, Gerald. But anyway,
Well,
that's
just
the
as
way
a
it goes.
side note, we brought up the Grand Canyon and Egyptian civilization, and Southern Illinois is called Little Egypt. I happen to find a map today that compares the biblical map of Egypt and place it on the U.S., and it fits with the Grand Canyon and the Cahokia Mounds, and the Mississippi actually fits the Nile and a biblical prophecy of the 7 rivers splitting off, and you can see the 7 rivers coming off of the Mississippi.
Well, the Mormon Church has claimed that for many, many years that there are certain biblical things happened here, and not where some people think they happened. That's an interesting thought.
So go down that rabbit hole of the Grand Canyon in southern Illinois. It's a whole Egyptian ecology that goes all the way through the whole U.S.
There are we need to do nothing but a show on the Grand Canyon because there are so many stories and stuff attached to the Grand Canyon. That would be a good show, definitely. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I appreciate your support for the channel, very much so. And let me put your show up there, girl. That's your channel. Go subscribe to Midwest Night Watchers.
Yep.
Show him some love and support here. Okay.
You can find this on YouTube, and we have a Facebook. We have a Facebook page and group that you can join, and we're also on Rumble and Spotify and all the audio podcast platforms. But our main channel is on YouTube, and our pages are on Facebook. So please find us if you can.
Terrific. And don't forget that store. Check out his store and make sure you might see something there you just can't live without. Okay.
Right.
You know, I see something you just say, hey, you know, I've lived my whole life needing one of those. Okay.
Yeah, we got some hoodies and stuff. We're gonna put some long sleeve shirts on there. So fall's coming up and winter, and Christmas is right around the corner. So you know, who doesn't want Midwest Night Watchers?
All right. And hold on just a minute. I'm getting back to the chats. There we go. It's slow and clunky tonight. There we go. Yeah, that's Gerald's channel there. Check it out when you get a shot at it. And also check out Hunting the Shadows channel. Okay, we need some subscribers on there. So if you haven't subscribed to our channels, what have you been waiting on? Okay, now's the time to do it, and we appreciate that. We definitely, and I know Gerald does. We appreciate all of your support.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, here's my Patreon. If you decide you might want to become an official shadow hunter, please look into that. That's patreon.com and Hunting the Shadows podcast. Okay. So check it out. If you haven't joined, what are you waiting on? Okay. Now's the best time to do it. Yep. And we really appreciate you being here tonight and joining us and taking another journey down the road less traveled with us.
That's right.
Who knows where we're going to end up with next week? Okay, but we'll see. And it's always going to be a surprise.
Yep.
And
let's tell everybody, please reach out to me or Dennis. Get a hold of Dennis's email, and our email is at Midwest is midwestnightwatchers@gmail.com. And Dennis has a Gmail. Do you want him to use the?
There's my website and my Gmail. What's your Gmail, Gerald?
midwestnightwatchers@gmail.com. And get a hold of either one of us if you have comments or if you have subject matter, whether it's paranormal, cryptid, UFO, anything out of the ordinary, or a rabbit hole or subject that you found, let us know.
All right. That'll do it. Yes, sir. I'll leave you with this final thought from C.S. Lewis, who said that my prayer is when I die that hell will cheer that I'm no longer in the fight. So that's a good one, okay? And we need to think about that, absolutely. And I appreciate you all being here tonight. And check out Hunting the Shadows Wednesday night, 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be coming your way. And Midwest Night Watchers, when will that be, Gerald?
Well, our shows are every Sunday at 6 p.m. And like I said, I don't know what we're doing this week yet. That's soon to become. And we have added Tuesdays. So sporadically, once in a while, we'll be on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. also.
Fantastic. We'll be looking forward to that. And all of you be careful out there. Remember, non-tambo mala. Fear no evil. Hold on to the light and embrace the mystery. Until we get together again, arrivederci and ciao.
Bye, everybody.